So, if you are viewing one of the unlimited upside charts and you see a green zone and a red zone, you can trade based off of this information by going into your trading platform and going to the buy section and selecting the limit option. What this does is it allows you to place orders to buy at a predefined price. And what will happen is your order will appear on the order books. And when the price falls into your orders, they will fill. And you will now have the asset at your predefined price. So in the instance of this chart, if you were wanting to buy in the green with intent to sell for profit in the red, you would simply put some limit orders down in the green zone. How many, you might ask? Well, with dollar cost averaging, you're going to want to use the more the better. Ideally, 5 or more. So in this instance, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 orders set up. And so in order to do that, you're going to take your trading amount that you have available to put on the trade, and you're going to place a limit buy for 50% of what you have. And Binance does this for you with a little order slider. You simply, yeah, there's when you're in the limit buy section, you can specify your price, and then there's a little slider that lets you choose the amount you want to order with.
Oh yeah.
You can do 1%, 5%, 10%, 25%, 50, all the way to 100. If you do 100, then obviously you don't have any funds left over. But if you choose, say, 50%, then it'll take 50% of your available capital and put it at the order. And so, for example, if you have $100 to put on this trade, and you do the 50% position on the slider and specify the 33.86 price, once you click place order, it's going to put 50% of your money. Also, it'd be $50 if you're trading with a total of 100, and you'll have $50 waiting at the 33.86 price. And then after that order is placed, you can now change the order window to specify 34.11, and you can again choose the 50% option from the slider, and that will place 50% of your remaining funds at the next level. So in this instance, your first level is 50, and your second level is going to be 25 because it's half of what you have left. And then you would proceed to do that with the next levels as you go up. And what that'll end up doing is putting, 50% here, 50% of what's remaining here, 50% of what's remaining here, and here, and there. And so that is how you effectively dollar cost average into a long position. You're simply buying more the lower it goes, but for the sake of placing the orders, you're going to start at your lowest order where you're buying the most. And then after you place that order, you'll place another order for 50% of what you have remaining. So if you had $100, this would be a $50 level for you, $25 amount for you, roughly a $12 amount for you, $6, $3 amount. Now on spot, Binance prevents you from placing a limit order of less than $10. But if you're trading with futures, you can do orders worth as little as $1. So if you're averaging in with even $100, you will be able to use all of the space to average in effectively. And the beauty of dollar cost averaging is that you get to catch the bottom with the lowest average price possible. So when the price falls into that zone, wherever it stops and wants to recover, you will have put the most amount of money at the bottom of that, which effectively gives you the most upside potential. So your returns can be the greatest.
That makes sense.
It does? Okay, cool. And another benefit of this is you don't have to try to time the bottom. You don't have to like, oh, is it stopping now or is it stopping in a little bit? You basically predetermine where you want to buy, aka in this green zone, and you place your limit buys accordingly. And then the final part of dollar cost averaging to remember is you want to place a stop loss at the bottom of all of your buys. Oops.
Why the button?
Because that's where you have the most of your money on. Therefore, you have the most risk there. And you'll be putting your money on at the bottom simply to.
But in the stop loss, you do lose money, right?
What a stop loss does is it limits your risk. So to trade safely, you have to trade with limited risk. And then with the right trade setups, you are only taking the trades that are worth the risk. So in this example, if all of your buys got filled and now the price is down here, you are taking your average price is about right there and your stop loss is right there. So your risk is only going to be this small amount. And in reference to this whole trade setup, your profit target is way up here. And so the risk is worth the reward. In fact, it's
for example, let's say all my buys are bought and it still keeps going down. It hits the stop loss and then randomly goes back. It shoots up to the red zone. Then what?
well, depending on where you're getting your chart, will determine whether or not you're likely to get stopped out and have the price recover without you. With my chart, when I place the zones, they're very reliable because they're based on a high time frame pattern. So the vast majority of the time, if you're getting stopped out on my charts, you will be effectively managing your risk. And if it does recover, you won't be missing out on much because it's already not perfect. Basically, if the zones that I specify do not hold true, then all bets are off and you really don't even want to buy back after you get stopped out. So it's simply a risk that you should be willing to take when you put your orders in. The whole thing of what?
When the stop loss does get even when the average in when the stop loss gets hit, do I lose a lot of money or just lose a little bit of money?
It depends on how aggressively your orders are placed. So for example, if you had $100 and you had 50 here, 25, 12, 6, 3, then your average price at your stop loss would be somewhere in between your last two orders, which means that you're risking from your last two orders to your stop loss roughly 1.5%. And so at that point, when your stop loss gets hit, your loss is now done. You're no longer taking any more loss, and your loss is capped at 1.5% loss.
Actually, so, I understand. It's not that bad. But do I put the stop loss? Let's say that $50 order, right? Do I put the stop loss like right below that? I mean, how close is the stop loss supposed to be?
So that's a little bit up to you, but the important thing to remember is that your largest order in between your stop loss and your largest order, that area is going to be your risk. That's going to be the majority of your calculatable risk. So if you want to be aggressive and you want to make sure that you're not stopped out, you may want to have space in between your last order and your stop loss. However, with the way my zones are predefined, you really should never be getting your bottom order even filled, let alone your stop loss being hit. So in the instance of following my charts, you could actually put a stop loss right next to your bottom order, and you wouldn't even be taking a 1.5% loss on the majority of your funds.
this is the main thing I never put stop losses because I feel as if, oh, it's gonna hit. And I'm basically gonna get liquidated. That's why I don't put stop losses.
Yeah,
But I guess what you're saying is, with your zones, it, it it's more accurate. Is what you're saying, right?
yeah, it's more of a in case of emergency type thing. And
Yeah.
if it does get hit and you do take that tiny loss, that was a risk worth taking because of the risk reward. And I can demonstrate that with the long position indication. So in the instance of putting your stop loss in between your last order and the bottom of the buy zone and the target being way up here, this has a risk reward ratio of over 17, which means that you could actually be wrong 15 out of 17 times and still make money overall. So that's why it's okay to take a small loss, because overall, even if you're wrong the majority of the time, you will still grow your account long term.
Okay.
So if you were trading 10 different things and they all had a risk reward similar, you could be wrong the majority of the time, and you could be taking losses the majority of the time, but your loss is so small in comparison to your potential gain that it's worth taking that trade, and it's worth accepting the risk of that small loss.
Okay, I got you.
And furthermore, whenever I signal to buy something, I have already calculated the risk reward ratio. I have a minimum of 3, which means that even if we're only correct half the time, which it's pretty easy to be right half the time, you will still walk away a winner more times than not in reference to how little you're losing and how much you're making.